Yeah, so good to be here today. I feel like I'm in the London chapter of Dataholics Anonymous or something. Is anybody here would pledge to being a Dataholic? Excellent. Well, I'm Martin Doyle. I am a Dataholic. I haven't touched dirty data for 3 days now, so I'm newly reformed. So I've been around the data industry, have a software business which helps companies improve the quality of their data. More than 500 companies worldwide, and I'm very proud in one instance, when the Hurricane Katrina disaster happened, we actually helped repatriate 4,500 people overnight by a bit of matching software that Microsoft couldn't do. So a nice sort of soft side to data quality, and over to Helen.
I've spent 14 years in a wonderful world of data. I work for UK Health, and spent the last 5 years focusing on data quality and training projects. I've been a DAMA UK member for the last 9 years. When I'm not doing my other job, which is mum's taxi, and trying to get fit at the gym, then I'm currently studying for the Institute of Direct Marketing Awarded Data Management. Before I start on the agenda, I'd like to take you on a trip back to the 80s. We have a lot of memorable adverts. One of them was Shaking Back. I don't know if anyone remembers the Shaking Back advert? Yeah? What's it about? Anyone? That's right. We've actually rated 18 in the top 100 most memorable adverts by Paul back in 2000. So yeah, it's an 80s clean product, and I think it's now being advertised by Jelly.
Worrying.
So the link is data sharing back. But this presentation isn't about shaking back, it's all about discovering does your data need cleaning. Martin's going to cover off why we're here, and I'm going to look at the purpose of the white paper.
Probably to go back.
We have an acronym for our 6 dimensions. It's not shaking back, it's cutting back. So the idea is to take a cut of your data. You use the 6 dimensions to identify your defects. And then you're able to cleanse them as necessary. We'd like to take feedback, including questions, after we've summarised. Obviously, if you have a burning question in the meantime, then please do ask. Now, over to Martin. We'll discuss
Thanks, Helen.
how we got there.
You can just click on one more. Yep. Oh. No, back. Something's gone wrong. Let's go. Oops. Yeah, it should be building. Ah. No, that's not it. Right, left, back, forward. No. How do we... It's lost all the builds, lost all the images. That is very weird, because they're there in the...
Okay.
Try the other one.
Just, this one.
Yeah. No.
No. Not those.
Is that the ones that come in? Is it just the ones that come in?
Okay. Can we try the other PowerPoint? Okay, fly-by-wire. Or gather around the screen. Whatever you prefer. Can we project onto the other? Okay. Well, what this is supposed to say, we got the image up. We're here defining data quality dimensions. What we're talking about today, we're presenting the white paper. I thought I'd take us back a little time to a sort of starting point, and I thought a reference point might be Plato. I don't know if it is the start, but it's a good starting point where Plato made that definition. We certainly had an awful lot of debate around these dimensions, as Julian mentioned a few moments ago, and about the properties of those dimensions, if you like, the way they're described. So next is presumably down, yeah. So I thought we'd have a little vote in here. Those that agreed with those dimensions that were presented, I don't know how many of you saw the white paper in advance? Yes? Good, excellent. How many agreed? Ooh, not bad, about half-ish. How many disagree? 2. Not too bad. Well, hopefully we can agree upon a few things. Now, these were supposed to build, but what I think we have a bit of a problem. People say, we want data quality. So you get this edict from above, we want data quality, which is kind of interesting, because if I said I want book quality, I want pen quality, it would sound kind of weird, because we're mixing up the thing, the noun if you like, of data and quality. Whereas I think there's actually a bit of a mixture between a real thing, you measure it, dimension, height, width, length, and an attribute of quality where you just look at something or feel something or touch something, you go, that has quality. So I can see Keith mulling here, and there'll be another one I want to debate with you later on as well. What I think is better is to say we want quality data. That's what the business needs. It needs quality data, not data quality, which made me think on the way up, it's not a good thing, because my business is called DEQ Global, which is data quality. I think I better change that. The next piece is really saying, ultimately, we want data that looks like we want it to feel, acts like we want it, and we expect it to work for us. So really that's what that's all about. I think the next slide might build from what I saw. No, the next one, which is a real shame doesn't show, because this would be a good one to debate with Keith. In this build, basically, you're starting with a datum point of data. So the wing commander has on his desk data, 12,000 feet. Knowledge, 12,000 feet above sea level. Sorry, information, 12,000 feet above sea level. Knowledge, mountains, 14,000 feet. Wisdom, climbing to 15,000 feet. So we have the basis of data. We have to have some dimension from which we're working from in order to get to where we want to be. And that's, again, supports the idea of the dimensions. I can't believe it. It's not my day, is it? And this is going up live. Ah, good. Yeah. Excellent. That makes me feel good. Oh, come on. Right, so we know that all data have some level of quality. The question is, how acceptable is it? So we've used the theme throughout the day. We'll be talking about how things operate in a school environment. So we all know that room temperature is room temperature. You know, it is what it is, and from that you might take a datum. Here we're saying, in the context of children, that if the temperature is below 37, they're getting cold, could get hypothermic. If it's 37, all good. Somewhere above 37, might be a problem. If it gets to 100 degrees F, 37.8, call the hospital. So here we've got some trigger points based off some datums that give us some degree of measurement. So that indicates that we need to measure and manage. which leads us to Helen, because another build has disappeared. We'll fix it for the presentation, at the upload, I guess. Helen.
Who has ever felt perplexed and confused assessing data quality? In 2012, DAMA were asked to write a white paper specifying data quality dimensions. We were to offer clear guidelines and definitions on what to measure and how. We needed to be mindful of our audience. They could be business stakeholders, perhaps people who are new to the data profession, and equally our seasoned data professionals. So our scope really was to make it clear, simple and understandable, and to avoid complex jargon. We've been very consistent with the white paper and the presentation by using fictitious school examples, which we think that the majority of you should be able to relate to.
Excellent. So we have a picture of something.
We've had a lot of debate around should we call measures, dimensions within our working party. And I think what we need to do is really ask you, what is the best label? Maybe have a look, have a think about it and share it in our feedback session. So these are our data quality dimensions. Completeness, uniqueness, timeliness, validity, accuracy. Completeness seems quite an obvious place to start. Really missing values. We take a school scenario. You're studying water aid as a topic in your school. And a parent has very kindly donated a map of the world jigsaw puzzle. Now, one of the children is particularly keen on impressing the teacher. There's perhaps a parent-teacher meeting coming up, and they want to be the one to be the quickest person to build that jigsaw puzzle. So they start building it, and the children are checking it against the website, and the water aid website to check, okay, well, where do we have the issues with the availability of clean water and sanitation? They know that India is particularly an area where water aid is particularly focused, and the child finds India and puts that piece of the puzzle in. Now they get into quite close to the end of the jigsaw puzzle, and they're looking, but there's no more pieces, and there's a critical piece that's missing, and that's Africa. So that child is looking in the box, there's no more pieces. So the outcome is that jigsaw is fully fit for purpose. It's unusable, and it's going to end up in the bin. And that child is going to feel very upset, very frustrated, across the teacher, and you're probably going to get an embarrassed parent. Who's experienced that? Has anybody had that experience, and how did you feel? Nobody just did.
Mine was MFI. There were bits missing. Absolutely, yeah.
But on a more serious note, if you were...
A serious note, you should have seen what my wife said.
No, on a more serious note, if you had a child that had an accident in school and there was no data in the emergency contact telephone number, then how do the school contact the parents and let them know that perhaps their child has had to be taken to hospital? Or maybe the network. Who knows who?
Sorry.
So I'm going to hand over to Martin now.
Okay, so uniqueness, again, I guess we all have a view on what uniqueness is. These things unbelievably entered huge debate. We're really saying you can read for yourselves, but no thing should be recorded more than once based upon how that thing is identified. Helen and I had discussed some examples, but I was actually talking to my son last night and said, they were looking over my shoulder, and I said about uniqueness and how in school now they have an also known as on the school register. He said, Dad, in my class there are 5 Alexes. 5 Alexes in his class. Now there's 16 in his class, let's say 8 of which are boys, 5 of them are Alex. So if we use Alex on its own, that certainly is not unique. We've got a Hamley, we've got a Tucker, a Laws, a Plant, I mean, unbelievable. So now they actually get called all kinds of names, as you can imagine, by the teachers and the students or pupils. So perhaps first name plus last name plus date of birth in that school is going to create uniqueness, but that doesn't mean that that's unique across the country. So I'm sure we all get the picture and have a view of uniqueness of whatever that thing might be. So timeliness, which, as you know, I'm not an expert on, having delayed here, and obviously the impact of that is that we don't have the presentation that we should have. But timeliness is about, we think, 2 things. Data representing reality from a required point in time. So obviously there's a temporal aspect here. Things change over time. A date of birth is a date of birth, that doesn't change. But the height of the child over time changes when it's recorded and how it's recorded. If it's recorded once and updated with a timestamp is one thing. Recorded, chronologically, what height they were at what time, again, is a different thing. Ultimately, it means that customers have to have the right data at the right time. Simple as that, and hence the image of the multiple clocks, because everybody's right time is different. Hopefully that's fairly straightforward, and over to Helen on validity.
When I was considering the image that we should use for validity, I was having a conversation with one of my colleagues, and he suggested, well, how about a row of sheep? A wolf in sheep's clothing. I didn't really like the images that I found on the internet with that, so we ended up with ducks. But he did suggest perhaps maybe a row of fluffy ducks with one rubber duck. So I'm going to take you back again to maybe when you're 5 years old. You're sat in your reception class. It's getting to the end of the day. It's your favourite time, story time with your teacher. Beforehand time. You're sat cross-legged on the carpet, and your teacher starts reading you a story about 10 little rubber ducks. And the story goes that there were 10 little ducks that fell off a container ship, bound for some child's bathtub, but they ended up in the sea instead. They each went off in different directions and had wonderful experiences with other sea creatures. And the last duck found a mother duck and her ducklings. The mother duck very calmly adopted that mother duck. They went floating off in the nest with the other ducklings. At the end of the story, the mother duck says she quacks good night to her ducklings. Each duckling quacks back good night, their mother. But the rubber duck can't quack. So there's a squeak that's right in the book, and the child confesses that squeak. It doesn't walk like a duck, it doesn't quack like a duck, but it's not a duck. In our data world, that would be invalid. And the outcome would be that eventually that mother duck would reject that rubber duck, just as we would reject that as a data world.
Okay, so accuracy. Again, another dimension that had furious debate. And actually, one could argue that accuracy might not be deemed a dimension at all. So that might be an interesting debate later on. In this scenario, let's go back to our school. I'm going to cite the example that was in the white paper, where we had an applicant to the school. A US parent has filled out the application form. They have filled it out in a month, day format. As a result, the child has been accepted into school as 5 on the 9th of the 8th, when actually it was the 8th of the 9th. As a result, the child had to be told that they couldn't be in school. Another child that was out of catchment couldn't get into the school. The school's distressed, the parents are distressed, it's embarrassing, and basically the data are not accurate. So to illustrate that, I believe, and some of us believe, and there's contention here, that in order for it to be accurate, it must be valid, it must be the right value, and it must be in the correct representation. So building up from the bottom here, the data, it contained a string, so it's some data. Its values are valid. So they were crossing into validity here, which is where the debate goes. So in validity terms, the pattern was right and the values are valid. The values are right, I guess. If you're US, they're right. If you're UK, they're wrong. It's because they're in the wrong representation. They've been interpreted incorrectly, therefore it is not accurate. End of discussion as far as I'm concerned, but I'm sure there'll be lots of debate later on that topic. Oh, there was one last thought actually on accuracy. I thought, in stumbling through, I thought quite a nice quote. Wyatt Earp, the famous, I don't know whether he was a sheriff or gunslinger, he said, speed is important, accuracy is everything. It's better to hit the target, isn't it, than be quick. Anyway, Helen, consistency.
We've been quite consistent in our approach with the presentation. Make sure that we put it in the order of our cut and back acronym. And then noticed also that we are very consistent with our visual. We have a data quality dimensions visual in the top right hand corner of the presentation slide. I'm going to take you into a maths group now, and you've got times tables torture. You get that every week, every Friday. Now, if you want to move up to the next group, you have to have 100% results over 3 consecutive weeks. Now, your best friend has just moved up to the next class. So you're desperate to be with them. So you've got first week you're thinking, okay, what am I going to do to get 100%? So you write it on the card, and you're able to hide that from the teacher, and you get away with it and get 100%. In the second week, you copy from a friend who's pretty consistent and got it right for the last 2 weeks. And you managed to get 100%. Now the third week, unfortunately, because your friend got 100% over the 3 weeks, they've now moved up, so you can't copy from them. And also it was a hot day, so your mum made you wear short sleeves. You can't get away with writing on your arm. So you didn't get 100% in the third week. The outcome is you're not going to move up, and you're back to square one. Just like within our data world, you can't find that consistency. You are back to square one. And another note would be that you could be consistently right, you could also be consistently wrong, which is where we go into the realms of accuracy.
So, to conclude, Helen, We're there already.
Do we have our special trick lined up?
Well,
Will it work?
I hope it will work. Let's see.
The special trick we had lined up for you was
Uh-huh.
the YouTube video or taking back that we found on YouTube.
Oops.
I'm hoping it will work.
I'm hoping to. No. No. That's disappointing.
Maybe like maybe
Uh,
not.
yeah. Well, the link. Yeah. Actually, Julian, do you want to drive your machine? It won't. There's a link in the image, so without the image being there, it doesn't launch. So just Google it, the best bet.
Might work on this with you. No.
No?
I'm failing on that one.
Okay. If you just do a quick search on, yeah.
Yeah.
Ah.
You might be alive.
Yeah.
Do you want to do something else again?
Yeah.
Yep.
So while we were preparing our white paper for submission, I had a bit of a reading moment. We hadn't just used front and back for the data within our white paper, but we've used it in our preparation to submit it as well. So we checked the completeness, checked that nothing was missing from our document.
Ah, okay, yeah.
We checked the uniqueness. We hadn't duplicated ourselves and repeated ourselves. Timeliness, we imposed deadlines upon each of the authors to make sure that we can get the white paper out to you so that you can see that before this presentation. Okay, your feedback. Validity. We had an external appeal to share our sources. And I actually interviewed one of our school governors and our school teacher to validate that all our examples that we were citing would be relevant as well. With accuracy, well, this is what we believe to be true, based on all of our experiences and all the organisations that we've worked in. Consistency, now that took a long time. As you can imagine, we've got 10 people, all with very different writing styles and different levels of expertise, all inputting into one document. We had the enviable task of trying to glue it all together to make it clear consistently from how it's been written from one person, so that it was easy to read. So I have a challenge for you. Tomorrow, when you're sat back at your desks and you're writing an important email or reviewing an important document, have you subconsciously used the cut-back approach? Also, you make a conscious decision to apply that to your day-to-day organisation. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed our presentation. Now ready for feedback and questions.
Actually, just before that, there's one thing I would recommend. If you do use the shake and vac or our cut and vac principle on your data, I don't recommend you go around the office doing the Hoover dance, because it will look a little weird. No. So, over to the floor really to get some feedback. These are the 6 dimensions that we had concluded upon as a group, as a DAMA group. Helen and I are obviously representing the DAMA group today. So, any feedback on these dimensions? Anything that, sir?
Actually, there were more than 6 dimensions. I read the document.
Oh.
Yes. And somewhere in the middle of it, there were about another half dozen, which we elected not to And so one of the questions that goes to me is actually you can make a division between the one that you have presented and what was the basis for that distinction? Why did you choose these and not those? Because there's nothing wrong with it. Actually, and I couldn't think of one offhand, and then one of you used the word cleansing in the shape of factory, and it occurs to me, perhaps, and you might not be able to confirm this, that these are actually the dimensions that are interesting in what you're doing with data cleansing, whereas the ones that are hidden are ones that are much more important. For instance, you're establishing data quality in such a way that you never have to innovate. That's also starting with requirements. Why do you want this data? Does it really benefits? How much is it going to cost? Is it relevant to my business decisions? Do I have a good definition of those sorts of things?
Yep.
These are the things that you do if you take the top down. Let's get the data right.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I think that's totally valid. I think that these tended, the process, we had we took a room, we threw out every dimension that anybody could ever think of, we put them up with post-its, we clustered them, we grouped them, and we filtered these down to the most popular as voted for by the panel at that time, which was around 10 people, wasn't it? I completely accept your point. It's a very interesting point. These tend to be looking at data that exists already, and therefore that lends itself, I guess, to cleansing, because you're trying to correct a defect that's already occurred. Whereas I take your point, before the data is even created, we should be thinking about dimensions that ensure that it's fit for use. So yeah, very good point.
I think one of the separations we're trying to separate out, as Martin said, the data that actually exists from the specification and it's together. So for example, consistent is a measure of what we use. Well, that's simply specifying global level rather than being the data from a particular field. So we're trying to separate out the specification from the data that exists.
And I think we did make a mention as well about it being understandable. So if you didn't have a definition, or maybe you were Chinese and you're reading this in English, it's not going to make any sense at all. So I think that was one of the things that we had in the white paper, that actually, yeah, it's not understandable then.
And another part of the criteria was that this should be language that's understood by a business person, not necessarily a data professional. This is to help anybody in the data profession to consolidate and give us a unified, ubiquitous language. But it certainly doesn't exclude other dimensions that might need defining, and perhaps that's a second level of work that needs to be looked at. And certainly one of our members fought very hard for other dimensions, and
I think that there's not a particular limit. I think it's a mistake to just have a top 6 or something. The real question is whether it's going to affect requirements of business today. And is this going to be something that we're going to want to measure in some cases? So there are things we can measure about data that are never going to have an impact. The consequence of different values can have no impact on the decisions that the business makes.
yeah, I think that's every business.
The colour of the ink, which is really dark black or slightly greyish, just isn't going to make any difference.
Yeah, I agree. You've got to focus on
So there are things that we can rule out, but I think you rule some things out which you shouldn't do, and you may not keep multiple rules. I'll give you another data point. It is almost exactly 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote a book that is about the same length called Managing Data Quality.
Excellent.
Get it off the web.
Right.
It's the really interesting thing is actually how similar it is to your larger list.
Yeah.
This was down that list. It's actually remarkably similar. And the thing I think is good about that is, well, it's confident.
Yeah. No.
And so you get a bit of a separate.
Well, it's a validation, I guess. Yeah, well, I'd love to talk about that offline and take that offline and cross-compare those. That would be really useful. And I think your point there is it's the importance to the business. So you should select these dimensions, which we call dimensions. Which, that's a question. Does everybody think they should be called dimensions?
There is an argument for characteristics stuff. It would be interesting to do the put spots by the post-its and see what votes we get.
Yeah.
What dimensions do I think are into business?
No.
Dimensions to me speaks more to sort of reporting a company in our business world. They would see that as
It speaks to me of kilograms, Newton meters, joules, amps. It doesn't, height, width, length. It doesn't speak to me of 10 kilobytes, of data. I'll have 20 grams of your very best data, please.
Well, the other thing that it speaks to the data world is these dimensions in business intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
yes, that's what I
Not
meant.
business intelligence dimensions.
Correct.
So, by the way, you're not alone in using the word dimensions. I've heard the word used for this. It isn't a word I would choose. By the
Interesting.
way, you can choose what to put in your document. You can't choose what to
Agreed.
Have a couple more questions.
Yep.
Is there a list of terminology that you have considered? Because I also thought maybe facets.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that was where it was.
Yeah.
I think we need to actually adapt it depending on your business.
It was in there.
What works with your business that you sort out and say, here we go.
It would be good to have it down. That would be
Well, that's what we're going for. I mean, you are the industry, we are the industry, so it's up to us to declare what they are.
This is true, but then we also...
Yeah, a nice change, wouldn't it?
it?
Term that everybody agrees to.
Good God. Ubiquitous language, get out of here.
Understandable to the business as well.
You mean this old fella? You mean that he was kind of thinking about that 2,500 years ago? Yeah.
One rather tongue-in-cheek comment. You said you checked the paper for accuracy.
Oh, here it comes. Here it comes.
300 divided by 294 by times 100 does not equal 98%. It equals over 100%. You've got your figures.
Oh dear.
Which one was that? Sorry.
It was on the completeness.
Well, thank you.
There's always one, and you can usually find it in the data conference.
I would call that inaccurate.
If we're talking about being picky, there were two picky points I had.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them related to uniqueness. One of them is that you have timeless as I mentioned, but then have two different definitions of it. That means you've got two different things rather than one name.
Mm-hmm.
So that's doesn't meet the criteria of uniqueness.
Mm-hmm.
But they really are different. They're not just different ways to describe it. So.
In the timeliness dimension, yeah.
So really you should have made that two dimensions in its own place.
Okay.
And actually, by the way, I think that it's really the custom celebration, right? I think the first one is really just something about the data you're interested in. Which is right data.
Well, it's something from a datum point, I think. Sorry, we've got two far away.
On the timing side, I would have thought that you were having the right data at the right time would be more of a process competition than a data competition.
Yeah.
And with all the other dimensions, I can see specifically people would look at the data and be able to, whereas if people are receiving the data,
Yeah.
And in a way, you could say when somebody does not have the right data at the right time, the absence of data could be a completeness issue at that point in time.
Yes.
But I definitely think that this dimension of order speaks to the process.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, valid.
A suggestion there that if you look at the 6 dimensions that you've got now,
Yeah.
5 of them are what I would call content dimensions. They're
Yeah.
about the data itself. Timeliness is more of a context.
Yeah.
It's about how the data is used, which I think that opens up as well the most important dimension potentially, which is a context dimension, which is what I would call fitness for proof. So it's the data.
Okay, and how do you measure that?
So the reason why we have dimension is because basically one way I could see this have a word would be quality requirement. The dimension actually quality requirement depending on what I do. If I need a fast car, I need a fast car, that's my quality requirement. Maybe I don't need a Porsche, I need a big car who can carry a lot of goods. So it depends on the context what I need. And in some contexts I need that something where I can access it very fast, like investment banking. In some contexts I need very, very correct data because I'm in engineering and my spacecraft would explode. So it really depends on the context, and I wouldn't put it into a dimension. It's the whole concept of quality.
Yeah, but I think the point is different people interpret quality in different ways depending on what they're doing.
Yeah, I agree. The issue is a very good point, and hence the fitness for use, fitness for purpose being the all-encompassing. Is this quality data?
A classic example being the marketing data file is 92% accurate. That's fine because getting the other 8% accurate is not cost effective.
Yeah.
If you're giving radiology in a hospital, 92% probably is good.
Agreed.
They kill 8% even.
Correct, and they do.
So that's the context.
True. The question is it accurate? How do you measure accuracy? How do you measure fitness for use? Because that makes it not a dimension. One last, because we've got a timeout.
It does build actually on what has been letting me answer through. Because it's absolutely right, isn't it? That it's got to drive the right process and it's got to drive the right decisions. But it's a question, my question is, what I haven't seen out of the discussion really is a good sort of practical way of being able to roll up the impact of the data imperfections.
Yes.
So, going back to your pilot at the beginning,
Yeah.
24,000 from
Yeah. Yeah.
if that's plus or minus 2%, that's just fine.
Yeah.
Plus or minus 20%, probably not fine. And equally, in every decision that's referred to on the top of the business. In my experience, very seldom you see reports going to a board that say, you lost 3 customers, plus or minus 0.5%, 1%. Or they're hand conditioned if they do that, they're hand conditioned.
Yeah.
So my question is that on DAMA's agenda at all to understand the impact in a systematic way of these imperfections in the way that they roll up through a reporting system, a warehouse, analytics environment? Because one way of driving it is you've got to understand the criticality, so that drives down how much you're going to spend. Another way of looking at exactly the same thing is when you've got data quality, maybe for historical reasons, so what's the impact on the decision of the plus or minus whatever? I don't want to see that in currency quality systems. So it's a question for everybody actually, and for in data quality also on both of it. What do you see out there in terms of being able to roll up impact data quality?
Well, I've responded. I don't know if Helen or Julian want to take that.
I think in terms of rolling it up, it's all about context. You mentioned context earlier. A lot of it is down to context. I think different business needs, there are going to be different impacts. So I think there needs to be intelligent application on however you characterise the data quality for it to be used. And I think your comment there about sensitivity of outputs, that is also a bugbear of mine. The fact that very often when decisions are being made, it's being based on numbers and is calculated, but there's no sensitivity put around that number.
I know we're out of time, but really quickly, Keith Gordon made a very important point in this room where I presented, where presenting his book demonstrates the difference between data, of course, and information. And that was what I was trying to do with the illustration of the pilot. Now, these are data dimensions. What I think you're referring to is information that's coming that's derived from that data. So we have to be careful that these are not information dimensions, they're dimensions that, or what we're going to call it, that relate to data.
Is that we deal with the infections of the real world and we characterise those.
Yep.
We then put it into a whole load of technology that precisely adds up the correct numbers, precisely averages the correct numbers,
Yep.
and gives you a precise
Wrong answer.
which is incorrect to some degree.
Yep.
The same technology, very seldom, and I agree with Julian in that it is absolutely context
Yep.
specific. But it's also true that it is a general point about pretty much every reporting environment.
I agree.
That you've got imperfect data.
So what I think you're saying is we make very bad decisions with a high level of certainty.
There's a long catalogue of very poor decisions.
Absolutely. We went to war, I believe, looking for weapons of mass destruction.
Okay, so just that's not true. So in the oil industry, you're looking at the uncertainty you've got around the information you've got about where the oil is.
Yes.
They actually do run. They build 50 models.
Right.
And they see, well, if we change that, if we assume that data is bad in that way,
Okay.
and they do explore.
So absolutely that's an exception. And the oil industry spends huge amounts on what the rest of the data rooms. But in general commercial use, you seldom.
Yeah, I think.
For the business rules.
I think, Helen, what I think I'm hearing from that is in the paper, we should be putting down the impact of these. In the examples, there should be an impact that Helen, for instance, was relaying in some of the stories. The impact to the business or the person, and that, that could be financial, emotional, risk, life-threatening. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Thank you.